Let's look at evaluating expressions. Evaluate means to find the value. And you have a hint because in the word evaluate, you almost have the word value. In order to evaluate an expression, we need to use substitution. When you substitute, you're going to replace your variable with a number. So here in the expression 6a minus c, I'm going to replace my variables with the given numbers. Whenever you substitute, you always need to make sure that you use parentheses. So as I rewrite my expression, I'm putting parentheses for a and parentheses for c. I'm then going to substitute a is 4 and c is negative 2. Now the reason that we use parentheses is if I just put 6a and I said a was 4, that would be 64. 64 is not the same thing as 6 times 4. And when I have a number next to a variable, that means to multiply. So that's why it's important to use parentheses. Once we substitute with the parentheses, we follow our order of operations. If you remember your order of operations, you probably used PEMDAS, where P stands for the parentheses. You would do your grouping symbols first. The E stands for your exponents, such as if you had 2 cubed. Multiplication and division means that you're going to multiply and divide in order from left to right. Your addition and subtraction also go in order from left to right. So as I'm looking at this expression, I'm going to multiply 6 times 4, which gives me 24. Now you need to be careful here. If you're using a calculator, you can put in minus negative 2, or you can look at combining your signs. When you're combining signs, 2 negatives make a positive. So minus negative 2 is like saying plus 2. My next step would be to add 24 plus 2, which gives me 26. Let's look at another example. Again, I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to use parentheses for my variable. Remember, only your variable goes in parentheses. Your exponents go outside of the parentheses. Then I'm going to go and substitute my numbers for the variables. C is negative 2, A is 4, and B is 3. Now as I look at this, a common mistake, a lot of people see the 2 times negative 2 and they want to multiply this first. Think about your order of operations. What comes first, exponents or multiplication? Your exponents come first, which means before you multiply by 2, you're doing negative 2 cubed. Negative 2 cubed means that you're multiplying negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 gives you positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 2 gives you negative 8. You then rewrite the rest of your expression. The next step is going to be to multiply and divide, or from left to right. Here we don't have any division, so we're just multiplying. 2 times negative 8 gives me negative 16. Now you could do this all in one step, or you could do this in 2 steps. I could say 5 times 4 gives me 20, and then save the 20 times 3 for my next step. 20 times 3 gives me 60. Now as I look here, I have negative 16 plus 60. If you were doing this with a calculator, you could put in the negative 16. If you were doing this with no calculator, remember you can make your positive negative T-chart. You have your negative on the left, the positive on the right. 16 is negative, 60 is positive. If your numbers are on different sides, do you add or subtract absolute values? You would subtract. 60 minus 16 gives you 44. Make sure you look back at your table, which has the bigger absolute value. 60 has the bigger absolute value, which means your answer is positive 44. Our next example is going to have fractions. Usually people's least favorite thing. I'm going to start out as before by putting in my parentheses and recopying my expression. B is 3, C is negative 2, and A is 4. I start out with my multiplication from left to right. 3 times negative 2 gives me negative 6. Now I'm looking at multiplying my fraction. When I multiply a fraction with a whole number, I need to turn my whole number into a fraction. You can turn any whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. Then you just multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. 1 times 4 gives me 4. 4 times 1 gives me 4. A fraction is what type of problem? A fraction is a division problem, so now I divide. 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. And I rewrite the rest of my expression. For my last step, negative 6 plus 1 gives me negative 5. Let's look at this one. Again, I start out by rewriting my expression using parentheses. A is 4 and B is 3. Next, I'm going to multiply. Again, I need to change my whole number into a fraction. I can put it over 1. I then multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. 24 times 1 gives me 24. 1 times 3 gives me 3. Again, a fraction is what type of problem? Division. What is 24 divided by 3? 8. So I have 8 minus 4 times 3. What is 4 times 3? 12. So now I have 8 minus 12. What's 8 minus 12? Negative 4. All right, let's look at one more problem. This last problem is a fraction. However, you can just think of it as two different problems. So I'm going to take this and write this over here. And I'm going to take my denominator and put my denominator over here. This is a good way to write out your work so you don't get confused with all the different fractions and variables as you substitute. Then my next step is to substitute, just like we've been doing. Don't forget the square goes outside your parentheses. A is 4, C is negative 2, and B is 3. Again, make sure you remember here, exponents come before multiplication. So before I multiply with the 2, I need to do 4 squared. How much is 4 squared? Remember that means 4 times 4, which is 16. Next, I'm going to multiply 2 times 16, gives me 32. Next, remember I'm not adding, I need to multiply before I add or subtract. 5 times negative 2 gives me negative 10. Remember here I can combine signs. A positive and a negative combine to make a what? A negative. So I have 32 minus 10 minus 3. When I do 32 minus 10, I get 22. When I do 22 minus 3, I end up with 19. All right, now remember, 19 is not your answer. 19 is the numerator. I now need to find the value for the denominator. So again, I need to substitute. A is 4, C is -2. As I look here, 6 times 4 gives me 24. Remember, I can combine here, or if you're using a calculator, you can put in plus -2. This would combine to make a -2. 24 minus 2 gives me 22. Now remember, you're not done. You found the numerator, you found the denominator. For your final answer, you need to put them back together. The numerator was 19. The denominator is 22. Always look to see if you can simplify. Can I simplify 19 over 22? No, I can't. So that's my final answer, 19 over 22.